She's an award-winning writer, a hunting guide, archery and rifle instructor, keynote speaker, and all-around outdoors woman who encourages you to get outside, hunt, fish, shoot, and savor all that life has to offer. And now, here's your host, Mia Anstine.
Well, hey, hi, hello, you all. It's so great to be visiting with you again. Today, I have another wonderful interview for you. It's a ton of information, but it's very important stuff. And it's something that is a controversial topic, and it's one that I think a lot of people need to know about. I currently happen to be gardening, and it's a time of year where you've got some types of pets and little nuisance animals and things like that that need to be managed. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of management that goes into any types of crops. So when you're looking at your groceries at the store, there has been some animal management, most likely, that went on in trying to produce those vegetables and fruits that you love to have, or at least I hope you love to have. There is also something else that I wanted to share with you just as a little housekeeping item is that in past episodes, I have talked about WSI Sports. There's a little kind of commercial ad there, and it's something that I use all the time is WSI shirts, leggings, socks. Actually, the socks I wear just about every day that I'm wearing shoes that need socks. If I'm wearing flip-flops, then probably not. I'm not a sandals and socks type of gal. But anyway, if you want to learn more about WSI, there is a past episode where I had Joel on, and he's the founder of the company, and he tells us a little more about the apparel and the design and their purpose and all of that. So you can go ahead and scroll back in there, and I also will include that link in the show notes so it's easier to find. But you can head over to wsisports.com. You can use my affiliate code, and that is MACO10, and that will get you a discount on your order. And whether it's your first, second, third, or whatever, you can use that code, and it also will help support the show if you do. So I appreciate any support we can get. And without further ado, I do want to share this episode about trapping and help answer some questions that you may have. If you have any comments, or if you do have questions that are not answered, please email me. The email address is contact@miaanstine.com, or message us. Mac Outdoors is on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And Mia Anstine, you can find me on most social media outlets, and I am always happy to help and answer questions or point you in the right direction. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's show. Okay. Well, hey, hi, hello. Good morning, Skye. Thank you for joining me on the Mac Outdoors podcast. I have been following you on social media for quite some time, and partially because my daughter's a trapper, and I think it's an issue that a lot of people misunderstand. And so a friend of mine, I've been working on an article about varmint hunting, but trapping, of course, kind of falls into that. And a friend of mine said, you have to interview Skye for this. And so I was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And my article actually turned out to be more hunting. So I was like, I just need to learn more about trapping and learn more about you. So as we get going, if you would just introduce yourself to my audience and let them know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Skye Goode. I'm 33 and I live here in Wisconsin. I've been trapping now, I think since like 2011. So whatever the math is on that. But I come from a family of lifelong trappers, hunters for generations. So it's not a new concept, but I didn't start trapping till I was in my earlier 20s. So and I'm a mom of 2 boys here. So.
And when you started trapping, were you a hunter first? Did you pursue wild game at all before you started trapping?
Yeah. So my, I go into schools a lot, and my little spiel, for the kids and stuff to let them know how I got connected is I've always been a lifelong hunter, bow hunting, since I was 10 or 12. But the reason I got into trapping was I shot a buck with my bow. And when I went to recover the deer, the coyotes had eaten almost, the entire back hams of it. So I kind of started trapping on coyotes as like a revenge because I was, this would have been in like a November. So then I had, December, January, February with nothing to really do. And then a trapper friend of mine, Dwayne Fronick, who's here in Wisconsin, he said, you should go after those coyotes. And in Wisconsin, we have to take a trapper ed course. So I did that and started trapping that winter. It was very unsuccessful, but that was sort of what started it for me, was the pursuit. And then I kind of stopped hunting after that because trapping was so addicting. So.
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned from other people. I actually interviewed a gentleman who wrote a book called Turning Feral, and that's kind of what he's experienced is the addiction to trapping. And that's something I think, as I said, trapping is severely misunderstood. But can you tell us a little bit more about that so-called addiction and how that happens or why?
Well, I think if you were to just follow successful trappers online, they make it look so easy, right? Like people, and a lot of the antis will say that trapping's a lazy way of hunting. But when you really dissect it and you see like how much work and effort and time and skill has to go into catching an animal, I mean, you're literally getting a wild animal to step on a little 2-inch piece of metal buried under the ground. Like it's fascinating when you dissect it that way and you're like, wow, it's really difficult. So that addiction comes into maybe you might be checking the same traps for a month every single day with nothing. And when you finally catch something, it's just such an excitement. Like, bull hunting is, you might harvest 1 or 2 animals in a season. That same excitement could potentially be every morning when you're checking your trap line. I don't know of many trappers that have a successful catch every morning for 4 months, but it's that concept of the thrill you get from harvesting your own wild game. You can still harvest fur, and a lot of fur bearers can be meat as well. And so you could get that potentially every day. So that's kind of where that like drive to keep going and being successful comes in.
Yeah. And so you're basically, as you said, that little small plate. What kind of traps are you using? And then you're basically trying to outsmart these wild creatures and get them to step on that one single spot in the middle of a vast expanse. What kind of traps do you have?
Well, so I use, like for coyotes, I use offset, fully modified traps. So, to kind of break it apart, if those listening might not be well versed on traps, back in like the 1800s, right? We just had these metal, big, giant beaver traps, double long springs, and some of them had teeth on them, and they weren't humane at all. But back in the 1800s, nobody cared about being humane, right? It was survival. Now, we still use these foothold traps, but they're completely humane. And I put my hand in these traps all the time for videos and for classes when I teach in schools. To show that, we could put our own hand in it, your dog could get caught, whatever, and it's not this bone-breaking device. So the traps we use now in the modern era are humane. And that is because, a lot of states have regulations on animals you have to release. Like in Wisconsin, we have to release, bear, badger, wolves, bobcats, fisher and stuff if you don't have a tag. So we need to be able to release these animals completely unharmed. They can't be released with a broken whatever. So I use these fully modified traps they're for the animal's comfort first and foremost, but you can still catch all the animals that you're targeting with them as well.
That is something that here, I live in Colorado, and here in our state, we have to use box traps. And so we also have to be able to release certain animals. And as you said, it's a lot more humane than it possibly was years ago. Can you, for our listeners, give them a comparison as to what that's like for a trapper, the work between a foothold versus a box trap? Or do you have experience with box traps?
Yeah, well, my, I guess, soon-to-be husband is actually from Colorado, and we met because of trapping. He used to cage marten and fox, and that. So I haven't trapped myself in Colorado, but I definitely know. I guess you're missing out, because we have so many humane foothold traps, and We call them cable restraints. They'd be like a humane snare that you could be using in Colorado. But unfortunately, with all the politics, it's just probably never going to happen. But the box traps, I mean, I guess we consider them humane, but with these animals like marten, they're very high strung, hyper part of the weasel family, and they stress out being held in these box traps. So you could probably debate whether a humane quick kill, is better than holding them in a live trap and stressing them out. But yeah, so I haven't done any, we don't have to use cages here because we do have all this plethora of humane traps that we can go for. So, we're not really forced to do the cages here, which I'm thankful for, because like coon trapping around a farm, like you can use, we call them DPs, they're dog proof traps, and you just catch coon in them and you're not going to catch anyone's dog. And so we don't need to use these live cages here. So I hope we never get to where Colorado is.
Yeah. And that's something I don't know if your boyfriend, you said boyfriend, or did you say husband?
Husband in 3 weeks. So
your fiance. But when you said he's from Colorado, he may have told you that we ended up with these trapping rules because it went to the ballot and the voters voted that we needed this. And it was all messaging that explained that. And I guess to kind of step back, and wasn't what I had planned to talk about on this, but having box traps in the trapping world, a big way to trap wolves or to manage them and the numbers and the damage they're doing on certain areas is to trap them. It's the primary way that they're managed. And with a box trap, they're actually having to basically walk into this cage. And what the trappers do is they will brush it in and try to make it look like the habitat. But no way ever. I mean, it would be a miracle if you got a wolf to walk into that box. And it's very difficult with coyotes. And as you said, some trappers make it look really easy to get coyotes into these traps, but there's definitely a huge challenge to that. And so that came about via the voters who were severely misinformed. And so hopefully for those of you listening, if you can learn a little from our talk today about how humane trapping can be, and that you do have that ability to catch and release. It's very important as a management tool, because we don't want to just shoot and kill everything we see. So sorry to sidetrack us, Skye.
No, that kind of falls in. That's kind of my mission with trapping. I mean, I sort of have this ulterior motive of education. Like, people will see a lot of my release videos online and they think I'm trapping or like recording them for the likes. But it's all education, because you just never know where that video showing that you can humanely release without any harm could be useful to get trapping back in these states. I know California has used my hand in trap videos to get trapping in the city of Torrance and stuff. So I'm doing it for education. It might look like I'm doing it for the clout, but you can't really demonstrate releasing in a classroom. All you can do is show a video, right? So yeah,
right. You're not going to bring the raccoons into the classroom. Yep. And so, I mean, talking about the social media and doing things for likes, I know that you don't do it for the likes. And as I said, I've been following you for quite some time, but I have seen that, I mean, your page just blew up. How did that work? I mean, what was your initial process? Did you have people asking or people attacking, or what happened on your social media to have you go so viral?
It was definitely the antis attacking. And I'm so open about the antis are what boosted like the followers I have, or like the fur hats, like anything. It's because of the antis bullying and attacking that they, how algorithms work and all of that. Like, they completely helped me to be successful in the hunting and trapping social media industry, which I think is hilarious. Like, it totally backfired when they try to cyberbully women, especially in the hunting and trapping fields. I don't know why, we just look like a weaker target, but it completely backfires because they help to boost, those followers. And so I really think that's funny. But yeah, I don't, I'm kind of like when you talked about editing with video, like YouTube content, I film my releases. Again, the primary reason would be for education, and then I put them on there. But I'm not good at like the editing and the, smash the subscribe button, all that kind of stuff. I don't really put out any of that content, so it's really kind of I have a boring social media presence, but because it's unique, I think, and it provides so much education that people seem to really enjoy it.
On the social media, are you also sharing any of your harvests or that kind of aspect as well? What are you teaching on that end?
You mean just from the trapping or like in the hunting part too, or?
From the trapping or from hunting, either way. I mean, either side.
So back in the day, and I always say like the good old boys club. So this was like all the old men trappers. That's all trapping consisted of in the, before the 2000s. The good old boys club, it was, you don't talk about your trapping. Well, back then fur was lucrative, that you actually made you could feed a family off of your fur income. So trapping was this secretive, competitive thing. You didn't share tips or tricks or education because you didn't want anyone to be successful back in like the 70s and 80s. It was like, don't talk about it, right? But now, it's totally flip-flopped. And, when the internet kind of came about, that same generation said, don't share your catches. People are offended by that. And the biggest one was don't share incidentals. So incidentals is any animal you catch that you weren't targeting. So if I set a trap for a coyote, success would only be catching a coyote. If you shared a picture of a fox or a bobcat or anything else in the trap, it was an incidental and it was frowned upon. Well, the reason was because it was, you were saying that traps are indiscriminate and can hurt other animals, right? Well, I kind of tried to flip that and say, no, we should be showing that you can catch wolves and bobcats and lynx or whatever and humanely release them. So if you don't ever show that, then, the agenda and the myths that are going to be spread is that all these other animals are being harmed if you don't catch that coyote. So I was trying to flip the script a little bit with social media and sharing all that. So I do share all my harvests. Of course, we have this ethical guideline, just like we do with hunting, right? You don't have a lot of blood. You don't have the tongues hanging out. It's the same thing in the trapping world. You wouldn't, like, one time I caught a wolf and she was in heat and it was in the snow. So it looked, I had to be very careful in my pictures because of course there was blood all over, and to someone that didn't read the caption or know, they would correlate it to the trap. Whereas she wasn't harmed at all from the trap. It was just that time of year. So there's a lot of thought that goes into the pictures that get posted for sure.
I never even would have considered that myself. I've never had that experience. So that's, huge education that you have there. If somebody read the caption. So if you captured this animal that's in heat, or were there other wolves in the area? Like, was there a sense of danger for you at that time?
I was in a big open field where I could see like 1,000 yards in any direction. So that particular one I wasn't concerned about, but I've had a couple wolf catches where I would catch the female and the ground was tore up for hundreds of yards from the male who was like defending and territorial. And as I was releasing him, I could see just glimpses of the male, like way back hundreds of yards in the woods. He was staying nearby. But no, wolves here in Wisconsin they still know they're the apex because we don't have a management season on them. But so they're not really scared of us, but they're still more skittish than what I've noticed the Alaskan Canadian wolves are. Like they're not much different than a big coyote here in Wisconsin. So I'm never really that concerned. I've had them follow me before when I'm bow hunting, and I never saw them, but just the tracks inside my tracks when I would leave. But I've never had like a close call that I know of. So
you're not really in too much danger of hopefully of being attacked or anything during that time.
Not yet. No.
Not yet. When you're releasing with these footholds, what's the process of releasing? How do you keep the animal from being too distressed or from scratching or attacking you while you're trying to release them?
Yeah, so I've kind of developed my own little niche in this. People call it the Riot Shield. It's this big black plexi board that I use. I put kitchen cabinet handles on it and I cut a notch at the bottom. Back in the day, you used to use just like a catch pole, like a dog catcher's pole, but which is kind of humane, but it can be it can be harmful to bobcats because all their veins in their neck are closer to the surface. So using a catch pole could actually harm bobcats. So but when you're using a catch pole, the animal can see you. There's no barrier in between. So it's very stressful for both you and the animal. And you're usually taking minutes to even get the animal secured. So I switched to this shield. And so as soon as I put it down, you can see in the videos how they're like a little bit distressed. As soon as I put the shield in front of us, they calm right down because it's like pulling a blanket up for a baby, right? Like they don't know that you're there. So they're completely calm. So then I can put that shield right between me and the animal and I just pop the trap off. And it takes seconds and then they run off. So it's safe for me because I have this barrier, but then it also calms them because they can't see me and they have no clue what's happening. So that's sort of been my go-to.
Wow. And I've seen your videos of that, and I think that's really cool. Did you create that piece of that Riot Shield, or is it something that was already on the market?
No, so when I first started catching bears and wolves, I would like come home and get like big OSB. Like I remember us going out to release this wolf with like an 8-foot sheet of plywood because I wasn't prepared, and trying to like drag that out in the swamp was a lot. So I would use plywood or the catcher's pole. And so then I don't really know how I had the idea. I remember going to the store trying to find clear plexiglass because it would be more lightweight. And then in hindsight, I wouldn't have wanted a clear shield because I would have seen anything. And I think the store was out of that and just had this black like plexi board. And I bought that and it turned out to be a really good idea. So I'm not like very business savvy or something, but it would be a cool thing to market. I know people have said that it's very like, oh, it's too skinny or too short, but I like it because it's only 4 foot by 3 foot. So it can slide into the bed of my truck easily and I can carry it. It's super lightweight and it's just enough to hide me, between the animal. Like I don't have to bobble this big 8-foot board out. So and so far it's lasted me like 10 years and I've never even had to, tighten a screw or anything. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. And that's something they probably say that because they're not the ones that are lugging it around out there and don't understand how cumbersome that could be. And I'm kind of giggling thinking of carrying a sheet of plywood from the truck into the house is an ordeal sometimes. I can't imagine lugging it around in a swamp.
Yeah. That's the common theme, of course, online is a lot of comments that are like, if you were here, you wouldn't be saying this. So,
right, exactly. So when you're out there releasing animals, are you generally solo or do you bring your kids with you or someone else to help film?
No, usually I just put it on like a tripod. So back in the day, I used to check traps before school. So the kids were with me. But now I work from home. So I guess post-COVID, I just go like on my lunch break. So I'm usually by myself. At first I would like the first bear I ever caught, I was like calling everybody in my contact list, trying to find somebody to help because I had no clue. And I thought I had to call like a warden and stuff. But after, I think that season I caught like 1 bear, 1 wolf, and like 6 bobcats. So by the end of the season, I realized you got to stop calling people. Like nobody wants to take off work or whatever they're doing to help you. That's way too much. So if you're going to set the trap, you just got to do it. So now I just do everything solo because it's kind of old hat for me. The only animal I haven't caught that comes through Wisconsin is a mountain lion. And that might be one that I don't think I could, I don't know. I don't think I could do it on my own. But I doubt I'll ever have that opportunity. So,
is there a certain technique that you would use to try to catch a mountain lion, or are you just going to see where their tracks are and then try to put traps in the area?
I had no clue. They just wander in from the Dakotas here. And one time we cut tracks in December in the snow, and it was the most amazing experience to see what looked like a bobcat track, but bigger than my hand, And I just for like hours. I was just following its tracks in the snow just because I was in awe. Otherwise, we just people see them randomly on trail cameras here, but the odds of it being in the area when I have traps set, I can't imagine it would. But it's just a big cat. So whether it's a bobcat, lynx, or house cat, they're all the same,
Yeah. And what kind of technique do you use to try to catch? Do you primarily catch bobcats and foxes and coyotes, or what are the main creatures that you catch?
Well, so in Wisconsin, we can only catch one bobcat per tag, and it takes like 3 to 5 years to get one tag. So really, you're only allowed to harvest essentially one bobcat every 3 to 5 years. But, like I said, it's not uncommon to catch 6 or 7 each season. So it's pretty rare that I get to actually target bobcats. So coyotes are just my go-to. Like, I don't really care about coon or fox or whatever. I just love catching coyotes. So that's what I set for. But the way that I set my traps, I can catch any coon, fox, bobcat that would come through because the traps I use are okay for all the different size animals, and the sets are kind of all the same scents and everything. And in Wisconsin, I know out west for trapping bobcats, you use a lot of like flagging and feathers and all that kind of stuff. But in Wisconsin, we're not allowed to use any fur, feathers, or meat or anything. So guys get creative with CDs and Christmas tinsel and all that. But I catch all my bobcats in coyote sets because I really don't think our bobcats use their eyes here. They use their nose with how thick it is, Yeah. There's nowhere in Wisconsin that you can just look across like a drainage and attract them. Like, it's so thick. It's just thick pines here. So I really think our bobcats here are more scent oriented. So that's why I catch so many.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. And here we do use a lot of attractants, and the bait is generally some type of meat or something like that. So you're using a lot of scents.
Yeah, we can use meat. It just, everything has to be underground. Like, it can't be site exposed. Like, it can't be seen from above because of the hawks and owls and stuff. So we can use the meat base, but we have to put it, down a hole like you would for a coyote. So hanging a feather up in a tree, we can't do that, or a piece of deer hide or anything. So people get creative with like these. They spend hours making these big like cubby sets for bobcats, and because we can use conibears on dry land here, 160s. So people get really creative, and it's like, I like the KISS method. Like, just, you don't need to do all that. Like, you can just make a very quick coyote set and you're going to pick up a bobcat. The most important thing is you have to have bobcats in the area. So
it's so interesting. Once you've gotten the coyotes, are you you're just doing that to manage them in the area? Are you using the furs or the pelts, or what do you do with them after you've taken them?
Yeah, so prior to like 2018, I used to send all my coyotes to the fur auction. We had NAFA, which was the biggest one in fur harvesters. But then with COVID, NAFA went bankrupt and shut down, whatever the reason was. So now we just have fur harvesters. And so I don't really send to the auctions anymore because they're getting like $10 a coyote. And so I tan all of my fur, and then I make hats and headbands out of it just at my leisure. But yeah, it's the actual auction house, COVID really, I don't want to say ruined it, but it did, not being able to import, export, buyers couldn't come from overseas to Canada, all that stuff. So I had to get more creative with it.
Yeah. And with the hats and furs that you're making, are you selling those, or are you able to make some money to replenish what you're doing? Yep. So I try to, I have a Facebook page that I try to sell them on. Otherwise, I try to trade a lot. Like, I got my garage doors installed with a fur hat, I really try to barter like a real mountain man thing. So, so that's pretty fun. But I kind of like ebb and flow. Like, I don't do a lot of sewing during turkey season, during bow season, because I really just do it when I have downtime. So cool. Do you have a certain story or something about like a favorite set that you've done or a challenge that you overcame with the trapping? Is there like one favorite one that kind of stands out in your mind? And to me, I'm kind of thinking maybe something in the beginning where you realized you could do it, but do you have like a favorite?
Oh, for sure. That was my first year trapping coyotes. So like I said, I had shot that buck and I had tried to trap that winter and I just stunk. Looking back on it, like I didn't catch anything because they were just all terrible, right? Because you're a beginner and you're just making really dumb mistakes. So, but that next year when I joined the Wisconsin Trappers Association, I went to the big state convention and I learned so much that next fall, I set out to trap coyotes again. And my first coyote was actually my first 3 coyotes. So the very first one that I trapped, I didn't know anything about the anchoring process of traps. Like, again, there's such a learning curve that you will make a lot of mistakes in the beginning. But as far as anchoring my trap, I did not do it well. And when the coyote got caught, it just ran off with my trap and it got tangled up and released itself basically. And then I had reset it and got the new anchoring equipment, and I caught another coyote a few days later, but a pack of coyotes had come in and killed it, so it was like already dead, and I was very confused when I was checking traps on how did this coyote die? Like, did I do something wrong? I was a beginner, I didn't know, and then I figured out that coyotes had killed it. So then I had changed a few other things, and then finally 2 weeks later, after everything that could go wrong in trapping, like coyotes digging up my traps, flipping them over, just everything. They would roll on them and set them off. And it was just awful. But I finally got the hang of it. And I caught that coyote that she had scars all over her face. So she was the female that killed my second coyote because she had all these fresh wounds all over her muzzle. So I know that was her. I finally caught her. So that third coyote was actually my first that I got to see caught there. But I just remember the feeling. It was like, the time frame, it was like 6 weeks from when I set those first traps and had all that like frustration to when I finally caught her. It was just like this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like a feeling of accomplishment. It's kind of like when you recover that animal that you shot, like that moment. It's the same when you catch your first coyote or your first bobcat or whatever it is. So.
Yeah. And that's something that I talk about a lot on the podcast and in my seminars and stuff is the work reward process. And that is also what you just described for my listeners. That is what creates that addiction. Because you have that set and then it gets screwed up. And then you're like, okay, I screwed up. I have to do better. And so you do another one. And then you're like, it almost worked. And so you have to go back and try again. And that work reward process is something that we have to have. We don't get that from sitting in our office ordering things on Amazon or something like that. So I just think it's really cool how you took the opportunity to learn from all of your sets or mistakes, or, some of them weren't necessarily mistakes, but you definitely had a lot of learning lessons there. So it's so cool to hear about.
Yeah. I definitely think like for hunters and stuff, you'll hear it all the time, like, because when hunting's over, like the winter can be very long and depressing and you get like almost a seasonal depression thing. With trapping, I'm sure almost nearly every state now has a 24-hour check rule. So like every day you got to drag yourself out of the house to check your traps. Even if you have the flu or even in a snowstorm. And it's really like a blessing in disguise because it gets you out of the house and forces you to be active or at least out in some direct sunlight every day of the winter. And if there's a snowstorm, you got to go dig out all your traps and redo them. And it's just really physical. Or anybody knows if you made the mistake of setting beaver traps a mile back in the swamp, when you catch a beaver, that's going to be quite a mile back carrying, So it's really sort of like a hidden way to keep that momentum going when hunting season ends, and our trapping season goes till mid-February for dry land, and then water trapping goes till the end of this month. So that takes you right up to shed turkey season. So the trapping really bridges the gap between fall hunting and spring hunting. So
I like your mention of it forcing you to get outside, because basically I always kind of correlate hunting and health, and not necessarily even the organic meat, but as you said, getting outside and getting in the sunshine. That's something that with trapping, you have even a larger commitment than, say, here in Colorado, our longest big game season is archery, which is a month, but then you have rifle seasons 9 days. So that commitment is a greater thing with trapping. When does your trapping season start over there?
Like mid-October.
Yeah, so you get quite a ways through the winter and then into springtime. And you mentioned leading up into other seasons. Can you tell my listeners why it's important that coyote populations need to be maintained?
Yeah, I mean, so on public land here, we have this October to February season, but on your own private land, it's year round. Especially for coyotes, there's 7 species of fur bearers: coyote, fox, skunk, coon, blah, blah, blah. But it's year round, no bag limits, no season or no license required on your own land, just because they are so prolific. And Colorado blows my mind, because when I'm out there, you just see coyotes out like in daylight, out in the fields and and in Wisconsin, we hunt them with hounds, we trap them, we call them year round. They are pursued so much that we have so many coyotes, but you don't see them because they're pursued. So they're not going to be out in a field hunting mice or whatever, because they know that they're prey over here in Wisconsin. But we do run our seasons, on public land. We stop all trapping before the breeding or in the breeding season, so that those animals on public lands are able to have the spring to recover. But on I have like a beef farm that I go back in April, as the calves are dropping, and we'll make sure that the coyotes are maintained there, because they lose so many cows and different sheep farms and stuff. So, and it's devastating, when they have all these new lambs or calves being dropped and the coyotes just come in and clean them up. I've had a cat and my favorite turkey hen. We've had some animals killed on our own farm by coyotes, and it's real devastating. So I can't imagine, farmers and ranchers that depend on it for their living, and to have it just wiped out in the spring. It makes us it makes me feel really good when I can trap those coyotes and help them out.
That's something that is hugely important, is protecting the livestock and domestic animals as well. And so even with all the trapping and any type of hunting and stuff like that, those coyote populations are still growing, and it's something that without management, they just would explode. And you mentioned the domestic side of that, but also the coyotes also will raid nests of turkeys, quail, other ground nesting birds. And so that's another wildlife population that they have an impact on. So there's definitely a need for the management, and trapping is a way to do that serves as a challenge, and as you said, an addiction. Where do you think your trapping is going to lead you? I didn't know you were already teaching in schools and stuff like that, but do you have other sites in the distance that you want to use that trapping for?
Yeah, you do. I go into a lot of schools, like Boy Scout camps or whatever, just like different educational talks throughout the year. But because trapping has this, I don't know, it still has this stigma. Like, you don't hear, at least locally, like you don't see it in the paper, like that I went into a school or whatever, when normally those things are put out there, right, for like events. It's always like they want us to come in and teach, but they don't really want to advertise that they did that. So, I hope to kind of keep the education aspect to be, kids love it. They love touching all the furs, and they love telling me the stories about the raccoon in their garbage can and their dog getting sprayed by a skunk. And like, the kids really, really love it. But then the general public is like, what? You talk to them about trapping, So, yes, I love continuing those. Otherwise, we just started this women's trap camp a few years ago in Wisconsin, which was like the first weekend camp where it's all women instructors, it's all female wardens that come in, and then all female students. And we started off the first camp like with 30. Last year we had 40. And it's like this all-inclusive where we teach them how to trap, but then we also teach them how to skin the fur, how to sew the hats, and to cook up the meat. And so it's like everything you could possibly need to know crammed into 3 days. So right now, that's like my big endeavor. I look forward to that because it's just really rewarding. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. And what time of year do you do the camp?
Well, like we've only done it the 2 years so far, so it's like the end of August. And really that isn't ideal for trapping, but with hunting, when you get into actual hunting and trapping season, it's just like impossible to find a weekend. So we do it in the end of August. I think we did at the end of September one year, which, was okay, but we're still in the bow season and stuff in our state. So the end of August, there's like nothing yet going on. So.
When you have these women's trapping camps, are you inviting anyone that wants to come, or is it kind of just for people in your area or in the state?
Oh, no. Well, you get your Wisconsin Trappers certification, but we've had people from like Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois. So anyone could come to it. But, when they go back to their state, I don't know if they would consider it legal to get your trapping license or not. But no, actually, we encourage anyone that just wants to learn like a new hobby, or even like we've had veterinarians, we've had jewelry makers, like we've had some ladies take the camp that they just wanted to be able to get their own like claws and teeth and bones for making jewelry. A lot of homesteaders that just want to protect their chickens and their calves and stuff, that they just simply want to learn trapping techniques to get that mink or weasel or whatever. A lot of like duck hunters and stuff that, again, like those, you talked about the nesting birds. People often will think of a coyote or a fox or something taking a full-grown pheasant or turkey, but they forget about the possum, skunk, raccoons that are raiding like 3 nests in one night. That really does that trickle down effect for the turkey population. So it's very rare that we have an actual trapper take the women's trap camp class. Like they're not yet interested in like being this crazy full-time trapper. They have like a niche that they're just trying to understand more. And so far, there hasn't been a single person that disliked the camp or didn't, actually continue trapping afterwards. So it's been pretty successful so far.
Cool. It's such a neat program. I hadn't heard about that. So that I think is really exciting. When you get ready to do that, will you put it on Facebook or on a website, or where do you advertise it?
So we haven't been advertising because we have had such a long waiting list that we've had the camp full like a year in advance, so like we haven't done any. We're trying not to get the word out because we, are like we partner with the Wisconsin DNR and they want us to put on like 2 or 3 camps across the state. But there's 5 of us that have done this inaugural camp, and it's so much work with this one camp and planning it and making it run successful that we're really about quality over the quantity, But our goal is each year that let's say we graduate 40 women into this field, if we could pick a couple of them to become instructors, in like the next 5 years, we could branch out and have more camps. But right now it's like the demand is just way more than we can fill. So we haven't really been, like when the camp concluded last year, we already had this year filled up with the waiting list. So we're not really advertising it out there.
Well, I don't think that's a bad problem to have. And I think that's good that you have an idea of how to, increase instructors or mentors so that you can maybe increase the number of classes. But what a great idea. And maybe that's something other states should be paying attention to and looking at that for education purposes. That's really smart.
Oh, I was going to say, it all started from those R3 like grant dollars. So that was like where the idea came, was how to get more women into hunting and minorities and youth and stuff. And so the idea is probably like 5 or 6 years old. And we, like I said, we're going on the 3rd year that we finally implemented it. And so trying to, it's really like cool. Like any animals we catch, we try to tan the fur. And so then we use that fur for the fur sewing part of the next year. So it's like trying to make it self-sustainable and kind of show the whole lineage through trapping.
What a great program. I just really wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast, because I know trapping is a sensitive subject, but you're courageous. And that's partly why on social media you have such a great following. I think it's not only the trapping topic, which is intriguing to a lot of people, but it's your courage behind that. And so I think that's something that has to be shared with the world. Do you have like a website or anything like that? Or is it mainly YouTube, Facebook? Where should people go look for your stuff?
Yeah, really. My YouTube is I even put that in the bio, that it's very random when I post stuff, because I'm not going to put out new content every Tuesday or whatever people do. It's very random. So you can find all my videos there, but in no actual schedule. Otherwise, yeah, I'm active on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, but I sort of, my kids are getting to the age where they're really busy into sports and stuff. And I'm really kind of, I don't know, just not prioritizing putting content out, So, I mean, and when it happens, YouTube is where I put most of it, but, I just, the time I have the writer's block lately, so I don't really do much with blogs or anything anymore. It's just, there's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah. And on YouTube, do they just look for Skye Goode, or what do you look for over there to find you?
Yep. I think all my handles are just some variation of Skye Goode. I don't have like like I said, I'm not creative. I don't have cool, outdoor name, nothing. It's just my name. So yeah.
Yeah, I like it that way. That's I'm the same. I always say I'm so creative. Just look for me at Anstine. Well, as I said, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit of insight about trapping. I hope that some people will go and follow you and learn a little more. And as you said with videos, another thing with trapping is that it is seasonal. So your content is somewhat seasonal.
Hey, this is Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, host of the Armed Lutheran Radio podcast, reminding you that the podcast you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net.